Hi, boys and girls. This is Mrs. Chadwick, and I have a really good book for you today. I'm dressed all warm and snuggly for the weather that's cold outside. My story is titled The Mitten, and it's by a well-known author and illustrator, Jan Brett. She does beautiful pictures, and she tells a really good story. I want you to think about, while we're reading this story, the parts of the story. So who are the characters? Where does the story take place? What happened first? What happened in the middle? And what happened next, or maybe what happened at the very end of the story. Are you ready to get started? Let's find out what happens. The Mitten by Jan Brett. Once there was a boy named Nicky who wanted his mittens made from wool as white as snow. Oh, snow is so pretty. Look at that beautiful picture. In Jan Brett books on the borders, she often includes pictures of what's going to happen next. And then on the other side, she has little pictures of what happened first. So I'm looking at this particular side here, and I'm seeing a new character that's going to get introduced. And it looks like the boy's grandmother. And sometimes grandmothers have fun nicknames. In this case, it's going to be Baba. At first, his grandmother, Baba, did not want to knit white mittens. If you drop one in the snow, she warned, you'll never find it. But Nicky wanted snow white mittens, and finally, Baba made them for him. So that happens a lot of times, right? Grandparents want to please their grandchildren. So she's making snow white mittens for Nicky. And then I'm looking at this clue page. It looks like the story starts inside, but if you look here, we're thinking about the setting. Where is the story going to go? There's a tree with snow on it. I think we might be going outside. After she finished, she said, when you come home, first I will look to see if you are safe and sound, but then I will look to see if you still have your snow white mittens. That's a lot of work making those mittens, so she's going to check to see that he doesn't lose them. So off Nicky went, and it wasn't long until one of his new mittens dropped in the snow and was left behind. So you have to look really carefully. Do you see it there, boys and girls? Yeah, right there. Little Mitten dropped in the snow. He's busy playing in the tree. But that mitten, it's like it's camouflaged. You can't even see it. Okay, so we're looking to see who's coming next. Here comes Nicky. He's running along in the snow. He's gone far away from the mitten. A mole, tired from tunneling along, discovered the mitten and burrowed inside. It was cozy and warm and just the right size, so he decided to stay. So can you see that little mole? He's going right inside that little mitten. What a perfect little place for a mole. And then we're looking on the side here, making a prediction. Who's the next character that's coming into the story? A snowshoe rabbit came hopping by. He stopped for a moment to admire his winter coat. It was then that he saw the mitten and he wiggled inside. Feet first. The mole didn't think there was room for both of them, but when he saw the rabbit's big kickers, he moved on over. I love how they use the word kickers to describe the rabbit's big hind feet. You know, rabbits have those big feet so they can jump really far. So they're wriggling inside of that mitten together. Next, a hedgehog came snuffling along. Having spent the day looking under wet leaves for things to eat, he decided to move into the mitten and warm himself. The mole and the rabbit were bumped and jostled, but not being ones to argue with someone covered with prickles, they made room. So let's see. There's 1, 2, 3 characters in the mitten right now. It started with the mole, and then the rabbit came, and now the hedgehog. And then we're looking for a little prediction. Who do you think's coming next? As soon as the hedgehog disappeared into the mitten, a big owl, attracted by the commotion, swooped down. When he decided to move in also, the mole, the rabbit, and the hedgehog grumbled. But when they saw the owl's glinty talons, they quickly let him in. Talons describes the claws on an owl's feet. Ooh, if I saw those claws, I'd let him in too. I'd make lots of room. I love how this picture shows them looking at him and they're saying, oh yeah, we'll move over right away. Do you see who's coming next? I wonder what this little fellow is. Up through the snow appeared a badger. He eyed the mitten and began to climb in. The mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog, and the owl were not so pleased. There was no room left, but when they saw his diggers, they gave him the thumb. When you're saying you're giving him the thumb, you're saying, okay, there's room. I'm giving you the thumbs up. Come on in. Oh my goodness, that mitten is just stretching. Do you see who's coming next? I love the clues in a Jan Brett book. It started snowing, but the animals were snug in the mitten. A waft of warm steam rose in the air, and a fox trotting by stopped to investigate. Just the sight of the cozy mitten made him feel drowsy. The fox poked his muzzle in. When the mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog, the owl, and the badger saw his shiny teeth, they gave the fox lots of room. Oh yeah, foxes do have really sharp teeth. My goodness, look at that mitten. It doesn't look tiny anymore. Who's coming next? Do you see the clue? Ooh, that looks like a big animal. A great bear lumbered by. He spied the mitten all plumped up, not being one to be left out in the cold. He began to nose his way in. The animals were packed in as tight as can be. But what animal would argue with a bear? Would anybody argue with a bear? The mitten swelled and stretched. It was pulled and bulged to many times its size, but Baba's good knitting held fast. Baba made it so well that it's not falling apart. Oh my goodness, who's coming next? Do you see that adorable little animal? That's a good clue page. Along came a meadow mouse, no bigger than an acorn. She wriggled into one space left and made herself comfortable on top of the great bear's nose. Look at this adorable picture. There's a little mouse on top. So let's recap the story. I'm going to have to think about it. Who came first? Looking carefully, I think it was the mole, and then came the rabbit, and then the hedgehog. And then I think it was the owl, right? I think it was the owl. And after the owl came the badger. And after the badger came the fox. And the last animal to come in, no, not quite, almost there. It was the bear, but the last animal, that's right. It was the little meadow mouse. And then we're looking at the clue page. The story's going back to one of the main characters, the person that wanted the mittens in the first place, Nicky. The bear, tickled by the mouse's whiskers, gave an enormous sneeze. Achoo! The force of the sneeze shot the mitten up into the sky and scattered the animals in all directions. Oh my goodness, what a sight. So the big bear sneezed because the meadow mouse was on his nose, and they scattered everywhere, and the mitten flew in the air. All right, who do you see is going to be in the next page? I wonder who's going to find that mitten. Can you make a prediction? So there, it's a wonderful picture. Look at the mitten. It's flying in the air. Do you think Nicky sees it? He's running, running, running. Oh my goodness. On his way home, Nicky saw a white shape in the distance. It was the lost mitten silhouetted against the blue sky. Since the mitten was in the air and the mitten's white and the sky is blue, he's much more able to see the mitten and find it. I love that reach. Can you catch that mitten? Look at him reaching high. As he ran to catch a snow white mitten, he saw Baba's face in the window. First, she looked to see if he was safe and sound. And then she saw that he still had his new mittens. So I love this picture because if you look really close, I'm going to have to really point that out right down here at the bottom. Do you see her? She's looking at him. Oh, yeah, I feel so good. I made those mittens and he didn't lose them. But you know best, right? Did he almost lose them? I love the last page because there are no words on the last page, but you're just looking at her and she's wondering, how come one mitten is the original size and why is this one so big and it's all stretched out? I wonder why. That must be so puzzling to her to wonder why did that get all stretched out. Probably to Nicky too, but we know what really happened, right? All right, that's a great story. It's a great story for thinking about where did it take place, the setting. Who were the characters? Let's see. Yeah, it did start out with Nicky and Baba, but there were a lot of animals in the story. Can you name all the animals that were characters in the story? And again, the setting, you know where it took place, right? Did it take place mostly inside or mostly outside? And what was something that happened in the beginning of the story? Maybe what was an animal that joined him in the middle of the story? And then maybe an animal at the end, or how did it end? How did they all get out of that mitten? What was it that happened that made them all go flying in the air? All right, I'm glad that you were such good listeners. I hope you enjoyed this wonderful book by Jan Brett. All right, boys and girls, stay warm.